In this video, I'm going to teach you how I tell stories for my brand and how my stories turn into content and that content turn into millions of views. First off, what even is brand stories? Brand stories is where you write, film, edit, or create content about your business, about your brand. You could be selling any type of product. As long as it's a brand and it has a household name, it's a brand and you can tell a story about it. And when you can tell stories, that means you have infinite content ideas. The stories never end, and you can make plenty of content based on your brand purpose, your brand's origins, how it came to life, how you made your products, how those came to life, etc. If you're still confused, I'm going to show you an example that I made for my brand, which is called Mazushi.
What is Mazushi? Who are we really? Mazushi is for the car lovers, those who live the fast life. It's not only a brand, but a representation of everything JDM. We are the misfits, the 1% who strives for freedom, success, and greatness. Mazushi is just a word. It's nothing without the people.
Alright, so now that you have some sort of idea of how this brand storytelling works, I'm going to quickly go through the main storytelling framework, which is obviously the introduction, the complication, and the conclusion. But the thing is, you're probably here to learn how to create content through these stories. So how do you tell stories through social media content? Well, there's another framework called hook, retain, reward. Think of it as this, it's very simple. Your hook is the introduction to your story. It's supposed to grab attention, attract eyes, and just introduce whatever you're going to talk about. And obviously your topics can be about your purpose, your brand's experiences, some events that are coming up for your business, etc. Whereas retain is the complication. See how it's all connected? The retain is like the middle part of your content. It's supposed to give the most value within your story. It's also supposed to raise a problem, a complication, something spicy, you know? Just like any story, there has to be something that the consumers learn, the consumers consume. So retain is very important, and the purpose of retaining is to keep your consumers watching or consuming your content or reading your content or listening to your content, right? It's also where your climax of the story is, so the big event or the big problem or, you know, whatever you raise in your hook. And finally, the reward is your conclusion. Just like a story, this is where you satisfy your consumers with an ending or with something that they learn, something new, some new knowledge, a key takeaway, a new lesson. Or it could just simply be like some motivation, a happy feeling, a sad feeling, an emotion, or just simple satisfaction or comedy. It's supposed to raise a solution or just give closure to the whole story, to your entire content. Also, there's an extra frame that businesses use from time to time. It's called a CTA, a call to action. It's where you add a call to action, CTA, to engage with your consumers a little bit more and directing them with a specific and clear action to do. For example, it can be as simple as a follow, a like, a comment, a share, a repost, or even click this link, click that link, swipe up, something like that. But the most important takeaway for CTAs that you need to learn is that it has to flow with your content. What I mean by flow is that you can't have a completely irrelevant CTA. Like, let's say if your story talks about your brand's community, your business's community, right? And then your CTA is like, buy my product. Like, you know, like click this link to buy my shirt. It doesn't make sense. It's not related. Your CTA should be something more flowing with the content that you have and the story that you tell. So for example, with the community story, then your CTA would have to be click this link to join this community or something like that, right? Also, when you're writing stories, you cannot waste any irrelevant points. Stories are supposed to be long form, but if you're not making content long form, because most businesses and brands don't make long form content like this, then you'd have to shorten it by a lot, and you're gonna have to cut a lot of, you know, valuable stuff. What you're basically doing is putting as much value in your stories and your content as possible so that your consumers are guaranteed to feel rewarded, feel satisfied. You can't have like a 3-minute story for a short form video, right? So you have to be bold and just cut whatever you don't need. Keep the story going. Nothing should really slow down the story. Nothing should slow down your content. It should just flow smoothly. So how do you tell your story? Now, if you make written content, for example, on X, or if you have a newsletter for your brand or your business, right? That's pretty obvious. You just write, you just type, you use text, right? So excluding that, for video and audio content, you're going to have to speak. Someone has to be the narrator, which means you're going to need a script. So every time you want to create a piece of brand storytelling content, you're going to have to write a script beforehand, before speaking. And if you do not want to speak, like I did when I ran my brand, you can use AI voiceover tools. For example, 11 Labs, they're pretty good. But as long as you have a voice that's clear and understandable to the broad audience, you're good. Now, the only thing that you need to worry is your word choice, your sentence structure, your story structure, how you communicate your story through your words. But every time you write your story, every time you create content for your brand, for your business, you have to stick to your brand and your message. You have to stay authentic with the message that you're spreading out, because this will build your reputation throughout time. The more eyeballs you get from your content, the more it builds your reputation as a storyteller, as a brand that shares their values, shares their purpose, shares the deeper meaning behind all your products, or the deeper meaning behind your name. Stories build trust and loyalty. It attracts attention and a lot of eyeballs, because humans are just naturally attracted to stories, and it eventually gets you customers and clients in the long term. Because when you have trust and loyalty, that's what you want. That's the best thing in the world for businesses. Right, now how do you write your story and make it powerful? You need to be able to choose your words wisely, which is also called diction, word choice. Now I can't just tell you like, oh, choose this specific word, say this specific word. Like, no, it's all about your target market. It's all about the avatar that you're trying to talk to, that you're trying to tell your story to. Now, every time you write, you have to pretend that you are talking to one single person in your target market, which I like to call my avatar. You need to always appeal to your avatar. You need to always have an avatar every time you create content, just like you create a product. It's the same for making content. It's the same for writing stories. So always appeal to them. You know who they are. You know what words they like. You know what makes them tick. That's why you have a product. Now you just need to be able to communicate with them and choose your words wisely. Also, it's good to have an emotional depth to it. Stories that express lots of emotions and gives the consumers lots of empathy for whatever's being told, that will have an impact towards them. They'll become more emotionally invested and more curious to what your brand is, and they want to know more stories. They want to hear more stories from you. Right? So use lots of emotional words. Also, this is probably the most important one. Have a deeper meaning or lesson or takeaway in every piece of content and brand story that you make. So for example, with my brand, I made a piece of content that talked about cars and gym and how it relates really well to the young audience of today's world.
Most young people in this world today have two common interests: cars and gym. This huge community of so-called gym rats and car enthusiasts are more similar than you think, because they both are influenced by one thing. Can you guess what it is? Power. Power is what...
It's just like a Disney movie, basically. Like, there's always a deeper message. There's always a deeper lesson within the movie or the story. You do this because you want to get people thinking about your story, right? You want to get people thinking about the message that you're trying to spread out, which is good because that's what builds your loyal audience and then eventually your customers. So now I'm going to tell you some examples of topics and ideas to use for your brand stories. You can talk about your brand's purpose, your brand's experiences, like customers, behind the scenes, events, your brand's products, like the origin of your product, the process of making your product, and the manufacturing processes, your brand's community, your brand's identity, your brand's culture, your brand's problems, and your brand's solutions. You will have plenty to talk about, because then again, after you've talked about all of those, you can recycle it and make it better. Storytelling is endless. There's endless possibilities. You can tell infinite stories. That's why at the beginning of this video I said brand storytelling gives you infinite content ideas. Now I really want to see you guys try this out and, you know, choose a topic to talk about for your brand and make a piece of content and send it to me on Instagram. I'll put my IG tag in the description or on the screen, and just send it to me, give me a DM, and I'll review it for you. Anyways, that's all for me for today. Thank you for watching.